Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to the panel for being here, and Mr. Dodaro, thanks for the heavy lifting and sharp penciling and pinpointing that you continue to do. One man's opinion in an overlarge federal government, but nonetheless. One area that I'm interested in is the unobligated balances that are out there, some staggering in nature, at least to my opinion. Is there any value to allowing agencies to hold excess appropriations to the next fiscal year? And I guess I would add quickly to that, at what point does it become a problem?
Yeah, I think, agencies need, and it depends on the program and the activity, so it's variable. They need to have a little bit of a potential buffer depending on the nature of the programs. But the ones we looked at, they had set criteria for what they thought they needed in additional to hold in appropriations. They were well above their own criteria, and that's why we called it excess. So the amount of unobligated balances that we had pointed out in those areas are ones that, in our view, should be deobligated or rescinded by the Congress.
How did in specifically, let me get to a specific one here in the State Department. One area I've been, in fact, dealing with back in the district. The consular and border security programs was $440 million over its target for unobligated balances in fiscal year 2014. How did that account end up almost $500 million over target? Chris.
Well, sir, as Mr. Dodaro mentioned, is that very often these types of programs, the consular service that you mentioned over at State Department Environment or Department of Energy was another, will have spending obligations or needs that will cross fiscal years. Our point to this is that they have had targets that they have put in place, the amount of money that they need to have each year to handle that type of flexibility or to understand that their spending will cross years. When this is way out of whack, as it was with consular services, as it was with parts of the Department of Energy, they need to be able to roll that back, or at least they need to have greater transparency and understanding as to what money they actually need, how they're going to spend it, and then be publicly reporting on where they are on that.
Yeah, well, I guess my concern would be, if that be the case, and they set at 25%, yes, sir, why not fix the problem by next year just saying we're going to set at 40%? That doesn't seem to get in touch with the reality of trying to live within one's means and truthfully set those targets.
Well, setting it at they could flex, move it each year and say we're going from 25% to 40% or even down beyond that. What the goals that, and again, these are goals that they have set for themselves. These are based on historically what they think they need to carry over from year to year.
And they have to justify it?
That, well, yes, but not at the level that we think that there should be that level of transparency, and that's the whole point on this.
Yeah, one of the things we do every year, Congressman, is we scrub a lot of these accounts and provide the information to the appropriation committees. And in some cases, the appropriations committees will not approve additional money if there are large carryover balances. And so we keep an eye on these activities quite a bit, and the agencies have to justify it. But we try to flag these for the appropriators so that they can focus on whether or not to take action.
Have any Customs and Border Patrol officials been held accountable for, as I see here, 2012, 2013, 2014, right around 40% has been where they've ended up over target. Have any accountability thus far?
There typically isn't accountability at an individual level on this, or even an institutional level. What we're talking about is improving management processes that get a better transparency and better management over time, so that you don't. There will be fluctuations, sir. Is exactly what you're saying. And that's to be expected. But what we do want to see is that if you set your own targets, you ought to be able to pretty consistently hit those targets, and if not, have good explanations to the Congress and others as to why a particular year was an anomaly.
Well, another problem, and thank you for that answer, another problem that State, for instance, in their area of fraud prevention, they claim that they had that level of balance developed because fraud prevention activities, fees, could only be spent on anti-fraud activities. They didn't have enough fraud to spend it on. Do they have that significant problem in not being able to use funds at other portions of their budget or their processes?
Well, what we found, sir, is that, when we look at all agencies and across government, and state is no different than this, is that there are very often internal control weaknesses that are in place and opportunities for agencies to tighten up their anti-fraud activities. Certainly, we think if, within the parameters of the 25%, that that's something that state or any other agency ought to be able to improve internal controls with that amount of resources.
Okay. I see my time has expired. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman from Michigan. The chair recognizes